Hey everybody, welcome to the Ground Effect podcast, where we dive into the heart of Formula One, bringing you the latest news, insider analysis, and sharing our thoughts on the motorsport we love. So come and join us, G and Mick, as we look forward to what promises to be an exciting 2025 Formula One season. Welcome everybody to the final weekend of the triple header. This week we're in Saudi Arabia, just a quick flight away to the west from last week's venue in Bahrain, and we're looking forward to another exciting race at a circuit that has been in existence since 2021 but has thrown up some exciting races. Beside me, as always, Mick, looking forward to this weekend.
Yeah, it should be another good race. Different layout, I guess you could say Suzuka-style circuit. Should favour some different teams, so it'll be interesting to see.
Now, before we get started onto the weekend, we'll just hit some of the news that's coming out. Never a dull week or day in the world of Formula One. And to start off with, Imola, one of the old traditional circuits, which was actually just brought back during COVID, I think in 2020. Looks like it'll be their final year this year.
Yeah, it's a shame. The circuit's got so much history, but I guess they served the purpose, right? They came in, filled in the gap that was needed. To be honest, you go by the racing. I'm not overly fussed if they're there or not. But again, that raises the conversation of maybe having alternate races each year.
Yeah, I mean, Dominicali had come out and said it possibly an idea, but yeah, just to have two races within the same country is a little bit difficult. Although, I mean, we look at the US currently with the 3 races, possibly with Spain next year. I believe they're looking at the Madrid street circuit running alongside Barcelona, but things are still up in the air. Unfortunately with Imola, it doesn't
offer great racing.
Doesn't offer great racing with the current gen cars. I mean, it's just not a lot of passing opportunities, even with the DRS. So probably not a great loss, but definitely a great loss for those that love a little bit of history and tradition. Now, reports are coming through that Jack Doohan is possibly safe until summer.
Yeah, that's what we kind of thought should happen anyway, right? That performance he put in Bahrain really helped his cause.
Yeah, no, I think it's good just to give him a little bit more time in the car. You kind of feel that he's progressing weekend to weekend. Naturally, just needs to eliminate the mistakes, etc. But, I mean, look, last week he was on pace generally over the weekend with Gasly. Sure enough, he finished outside the points, but you get the feeling that there's improvement there. Again, just getting more time in the car. So, I mean, I'm excited if that is true. It bodes well for Jack because I think it just gives him a little bit more opportunity to prove that he actually belongs. Now, there's talk coming out that Saudis possibly wanting to own their own Formula One team. Clearly, money isn't a factor. It's not an issue here. What do you make of this one?
I mean, if you connect the dots, right? Recently, we've had Lawrence come out and say he was potentially thinking about selling his stake in the team. Then you have Aramco as one of their major sponsors, which is a Saudi-owned business. I mean, the stars are aligning, right? Surely.
Yeah, and it's green.
Yeah, exactly.
It matches well. Look, the Saudis are pretty heavily invested in motorsport. I believe they've got heavy investments in Formula E. If you look at what they've done just in the last few years, since especially 2021 with the Jeddah circuit, which was meant to be just more of a temporary circuit until they built their standalone track, I believe Al-Qiddiya circuit. I may have got that wrong. That was actually meant to be on the grid for 2024, but has been delayed to possibly 2027. I can see it happening, and I think you're right with they've already got the connections with Aramco and Aston Martin. That is definitely a possibility.
Well, that's the one that makes sense, right? If you're going to take one, you've already got your fingers in that pie. So, I'm sure they've had pretty heavy investment in the factory as well, behind the scenes. So that's the team that makes the most sense. But you never know. They could turn around and buy Haas.
Who knows? Who knows in the Formula One world? Now, good news for George Russell fans. Your boy may have scored himself a new 2-year deal with an option at Mercedes.
Yeah, I think this is definitely the strongest start for him in his career so far. For me, he's definitely deserved it. But then that raises the question, what does Mercedes do if they're really interested in Max? It doesn't work out with George, you've missed the opportunity to maybe get your hands on someone like Max Verstappen. Because unless they want to get rid of Kimi, but they've already invested in him for the future. So It's a tough one for Mercedes, really. It's like you need to reward George to keep him motivated, but potentially missing out on Max, and you missed out on him already once. Yeah, what do you do there?
Yeah, tough one for Toto. But, my opinion is that I think Mercedes have a lineup that they can lean on for like easily the next 5 years.
Once Kimi, gets this season under his belt, and if he keeps performing like he is and keeps the trajectory he's on, that'll definitely be one of the strongest teams on the grid.
Yeah. I mean, George is relishing that number one role. Perfect driver to have leading the team with a young guy like Kimi with tremendous upside as that sort of support role. Kimi, maybe next year or the year after starts hustling and he's on George's level, then we all know that things can change quite drastically. It's a tough one for Toto because, look, Max Verstappen, generational talent, but I just think he's settled on his drivers now, and I think he's got a lineup for the next 5 years, and I think that's just pure stability there.
Yeah, well, again, nothing's confirmed. So, strengthens the ties between Max and Aston Martin. And then we go back to Saudi wanting to buy a team, maybe Aston Martin. Like you said, money's not an issue. The play they'll probably make it in will be insane.
Yeah, so obviously everyone's heard that the rumors are that Max is thinking of leaving Red Bull, or at least there's a lot of displeasure there. It's amazing what a few days can do, because obviously we had these rumors before Japan. He wins Japan, everything's rosy, and then the shambles, which was Bahrain last week. I agree with you. I think Aston Martin is the play. Again, just get back with his mate Newey there. The amount of money that they could throw into that investment. Look at the money that's been thrown around in different sports. In Saudi Arabia, we've had the live golf stuff. Look at the football, the money that they threw at Cristiano Ronaldo. And knowing that the investment would be poured into a team that could develop a car when you've got Newey at the helm is pretty enticing. Let's talk about the race this weekend. What do we got from a weather point of view? Middle East is going to be sunny and hot, most likely.
Yeah, so you would imagine the hotter temperatures again are going to favour McLaren. You look at the circuit, it's very Suzuka-esque. That's more of a front-limited style circuit, which tends to lend itself more to Red Bull. So I think Red Bulls are definitely going to be a lot stronger than what they were in Bahrain.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Max won the race last year. This is actually the circuit that Ollie Behrman made his debut last year in a Ferrari as well. So some good memories there for the Behrman.
What are we expecting from McLaren?
Same. I don't think too much changes. I'm putting my bets on Piastri to do the job again, and with Lando potentially making up the same excuses.
Lando's got to put in this weekend. He needs to bounce back if he wants to send a message to Oscar that he's really in the fight, because Oscar, I think, definitely has the upper hand at the moment. He seems to have the handle on the car. Lando really needs to bounce back.
Yeah, you definitely want to get the last say in before we have a 2-week break, before we head over to the US for Miami. Yeah, definitely needs to bounce back after, in his terms, a pretty disappointing weekend. Not bad, all things considered, finishing on the podium and, starting off at 6th. Yeah, just he's not his bubbly self right now. If you look at what's been going on in the news and what he's been saying, poor old Lando.
Yeah, he's got to get rid of the scrappiness. He needs just a solid weekend, and I think he needs to make a statement from FP1.
Yeah, just on it from the get-go. Just try and dominate. Piastri is... there's something about Piastri, mate. I think he's just going to keep building on these wins, and to me, I just feel like he's the guy that's going to perform with consistency out of those two. What about Mercedes? How do you rate their chances? Do you see George with another podium?
Yeah, I do actually. We're going to see, similar to Bahrain, I think Kimi's going to have another stellar weekend. He's definitely not afraid to throw it up the inside, so that'll make for some exciting racing. But for me, they might not be the fastest car, but they're definitely the most consistent, and I think we'll see that again this weekend. And
Ferraris, have they brought anything to the table as far as upgrades, or do you sort of see them sort of struggling around that P5, P6 region, or is this a circuit that you think may give them a little edge?
Well, I think if they can run that car a little bit lower, that's definitely going to bring them into play. They won't be fighting for a win, I don't think. There's reports that they're going to be bringing side pods. That's just rumours, can't confirm. But if that's the case, hopefully that'll unlock some more performance. I think Lewis, he'll take a lot of confidence from the race last weekend. Hopefully they can get on top of their issues and get in amongst the fight.
Yeah, and I hope for Lewis's sake he has a good weekend in relation to Charles. It's hard with Lewis because, he started off... Well, okay, I'll take back to last year. We saw I'm not going to call it depression. It wasn't depression, but we saw that he just wasn't motivated. He starts off this season, he's bubbly, he's ready to go, and we're now almost 5 races into the season, and you're starting to see him slide back into what he was sort of like at Mercedes last year. So I just hope for his own sake, he gets a good performance in and kickstarts that motivation a bit. I mean, it was only a couple of races ago he won a sprint race.
Yeah, I don't think it's slipping back into the depression. Yes, okay, he was certainly disappointed after qualifying, but you saw he bounced back in that race. So again, it's adapting to that car. Once he gets a handle on it, he said he knows what he needs to do now. So I guess he needs to act on that this weekend. Like I said, the smoother surface might help get that car into the window. We saw even throughout practice, qualifying, even the race, him and Charles weren't that far apart. There might have been a tenth between them either way.
Now, what is Pirelli, what are they doing this weekend as far as tyre choices?
I think they've decided to go with a step down in the compound. So they're running the C3 hard, the C4 medium, and the C5 soft. So they're obviously maybe trying to entice more of like a 2-stop strategy as opposed to, I think last year was the 1-stopper. We've said it before, yes, you can pass there. Makes for decent racing, but I think if you throw in an extra stop and add to the strategy, that race is just going to come alive even more. Very grippy, but not very abrasive. I think track evolution is going to be the main one, especially on Saturday, come qualifying. Yeah, and probably more the lateral load on the tyres is the biggest thing, but maybe pushing the race to a 2-stop, it's only going to make the racing better.
Yeah, and which is what we got last week, which was one of the reasons why we had a great one. Now, moving on to Red Bull. Red Bull, what do we get with Red Bull this week? You did mention that you think that the circuit's going to suit them a little bit better, being a bit more front end. How do you think the driver's going to go? Like, Max, you can never discount, right?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter what circuit you're on, right? Max is always going to be there. You're not going to see what we saw last weekend.
Obviously, the rumours with Max being unhappy or whatever, who knows how true they are. But we have Yuki in that second seat that really hasn't cemented himself yet. Big race for Yuki.
Well, Yuki needs I think he needs probably even a little bit stronger than last weekend. Red Bull supposedly still bringing upgrades to the car, but at what point do you stop bringing your upgrades and focus on 2026? So that's, for me, the biggest issue with Red Bull. You can't continue to develop the car the whole year through. So what you do now is even more important because it's going to get to a point where you're going to stop bringing the big upgrades to focus on 2026.
The only tricky thing about that is if the rumours are correct, there is a performance clause with Verstappen's contract. Because if I remember right, he's contracted to 2028. Naturally, there would have to be some sort of clauses in there, and whether it's a performance clause. So it's a bit of a risky one if Red Bull wants to hold on to their number one driver, but focus and go, okay, enough of this year. Which I think is a little bit premature anyway. I mean, we're only 5 races into a 24-race season. And he's already won a race. He's third in the championship, only a few points off. So not all is lost.
Yeah, but are you going to hinder 2026 in order to keep Max? Max is smart enough to understand that at some point you are going to have to shift to 2026. Yes, it's only 5 races in, so it's probably a little bit early. But if the car performance isn't there, you're going to have to accept the fact and look to the future.
Yeah, true. It's definitely early. The thing is, I mean, he's still in the fight. So it's just, I think it's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. It's like the victim of success, right? It doesn't matter what sport you're in. Any team that is very successful over a long period of time, as soon as there's one issue or a couple of bad weekends, weeks, games, races, then all the knives come out, all the focus is on that. Yeah, it's all over. You're all washed. Make drastic changes. The thing is, he comes out, wins Jeddah, and then the whole Bahrain race is completely forgotten. It's amazing how fast we can go from one of the greatest drives we've seen in Japan, just eking out every itty bit of performance out of that car, to then the lows of Bahrain. So it's a very topsy-turvy. It can change drastically. But yeah, I mean, at some point, there will be focus into 2026, no doubt. All teams are going to go through that. But I think in general, we're probably a little early to make sort of those big rash changes. Look, RB's still in the fight. Yes, you could probably say it's been a bit of a downward spiral since, I think, midway through last year. You can't really count them out, especially with a driver like Max.
No, well, you're never going to count them out. But I just think, again, like we're looking 7, 8, 10 races in. I'm not talking about today.
Got to at least get over those European summer circuits, right? Summer break.
Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see. Like they've got a lot of work to do to get that car closer to McLaren. But again, like I said, I think they'll be definitely in the fight.
In the mix.
Yeah.
And hopefully they've got their little pit stop gremlins out of the way and all those tech issues with the lights, etc., are all done and dusted. Moving on to, let's go with Haas, as they were sort of the overachievers last week in Bahrain. Behrman returns to the circuit he made his debut on for Ferrari, as mentioned earlier. Ocon, good performance last week, despite the big accident. What do we got from Haas?
Well, I mean, they're just looking for a continuation, right? Good momentum that they have at the moment. There's reports, there's still some more little updates to the floor, like little iterations to the floor. So they're obviously targeting that. They think that will unlock more performance. We've seen from Ollie, he's a gunman. He'll be in there, I reckon. It'll be interesting to see if that car has genuinely half decent pace, which I think it does.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they were in for some points this week, and I think Behrman will outshine Ocon. That's my little prediction there, early prediction.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Mate, it's super tight. There's not a lot of time between those midfielders, and again, with a track that has passing opportunities, we should see some good, exciting races. Now, moving on, I don't want to be that guy that just keeps on going. And at the end, we have Kick Sauber. Let's bring him up. Let's bring him ahead.
Let's
give him some airtime early. What do we got? A continuation near the end, or can they surprise us with something in Saudi Arabia? Maybe they've got a little bit of luck being a green team.
Nah. Nah, I think it's the same. Just, again, looking to close that gap to the midfield. If they can do that, then for me, that's a win for them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think they'll be looking to make sure that they don't repeat the plank wear performance that they had on Hulkenberg last week. But yeah, I mean, I don't really see them being in the top 10 at all. But hey, look, they might surprise us. Now, Alpine will be looking for another strong performance. They showed some glimpses last week. Gasly did the job, brought some decent points in. Doohan was looking pretty good the whole weekend, except just missed out on some points. Again, you know, we'll mention, obviously, Jack's still under that pressure with the whole Colapinto thing, but knowing that if the rumors are true, that he's got until summer, hopefully that takes a little bit of pressure off him and he can show us that he's extremely capable of being there. What do you see for Alpine's chances?
If they have that similar sort of showing as they had in Bahrain, mate, Haas, Alpine and Williams, that's tight. So you can't afford to have a bad weekend. They've got a bit of momentum on their side from last weekend. Both Jack and Gasly are quite close, so I think that's really good for the team. Yeah, I'm expecting a strong showing again. Yeah,
you mentioned Williams. Probably a disappointing weekend last week because they really had the pace to do a lot better. Obviously, a little bit of bad luck for Albon that he should have snuck through to the next qualifying. As we saw, Hulkenberg did get track penalty later on. Carlos having to retire but was looking relatively strong for the weekend. They'll be looking to bounce back.
Yeah, for me, they're the leaders of the midfield, you know. But if you have someone like Ferrari who slips up, then I think Williams can be there to pounce. Carlos just needs a solid weekend. Albon's doing the business. He's getting a little bit fiery, but I think we've mentioned, you know, I think that comes from the pressure of having someone like Sainz in the other car. We know Albon's pretty racy, especially in qualifying.
Yeah, Albon's been definitely been pretty spicy on the radio with some of his conversations. He's pretty fired up.
Yeah, he's the new Yuki.
yeah, he's definitely fired up, which is good. You know, you want him locked in. He's got the talent there. So again, you know, we've mentioned it plenty of times with Sainz alongside him. It's a huge year for him.
Yeah, well, I think they understand. You know, they've got the performance there to perform. When it's not happening, it's got to be extremely frustrating.
Now, on to another green team: Aston Martin, Alonso, and Lance. What do you make for their weekend?
Not much. No.
Hopefully a secure steering wheel, first and foremost. Well, yeah. Alonso.
No brake failures and the steering wheel stays on. You know, Mike Crack came out during the week and said, you know, they're sort of struggling to balance the 2025 car and doing all the things they need to do for 2026. And they said that's really affecting their on-track performance right now. I think they're just looking to find that balance. Once they can do that, yeah, I'm not expecting a great deal, to be honest. Alonso will just want to have a solid weekend. Stroll, he's shown that he can be in the mix, but it's just whether that car can get in the window, I guess.
Yeah, Stroll's a bit of a funny one. He shows glimpses of speed, he has his moments. Yeah, just the inconsistency with him has always been a problem. Alonso will no doubt be looking to pick up his first point of the season. He's one of 4 drivers that are still rocking the big 0 as far as points are concerned. The other 3 are rookies. So Alonso, the oldest boy on the grid, one of the most experienced, I'm sure does not want to be part of that party anymore. But yeah, I agree. I think Aston Martin, maybe they get lucky. I mean, this is the thing with the Saudi Grand Prix. We've had plenty of safety cars here, so that can throw up some absolute opportunities if you can nail that strategy.
Saturday is going to be very similar to Suzuka. Saturday is going to be super important. You've got to be out there at the right time to get your lap in, especially with the track evolution, because the track's not used all the time. So track evolution is going to be massive. And we've seen, if you're not there to put the lap in at the right time, you can go from being in the top 10 to 15th or below. There's an opportunity there for them, definitely.
Now, speaking of making it count, final team that we haven't mentioned is RB, the Racing Bulls. Liam Lawson, I would still suggest, is under quite a bit of pressure to perform. Hadjar has been doing the job so far, despite a disappointing race last week. I mean, look, I think that RB's got quite a bit of pace in it, and I think this track is I think they'll do all right here. They really need to minimize the mistakes, particularly Lawson. Yeah,
I think Lawson, similar to Doohan, just needs a super clean weekend. No mistakes. Keep it clean. Try not to get involved in too much. This will be his 3rd race back. So just build into the weekend. Hadjar's shown that he can do the job, that's for sure.
Yeah, Hadjar definitely shows that he's got the 1 lap pace when he really needs to put it in. And, there's been I can't remember which commentator it was, but they said that it could be that some of these F2 drivers that have graduated into F1 get on the pace really quickly because when they have their race weekends, they only get that 1 practice session, then straight into a sprint quali. So it's sort of like they have to learn not to build into the weekend, but to sort of be on the pace straight away.
Yep.
And it was quite a good point because you kind of seen that with some of these young guys, particularly with Hadjar. Lawson, I think, will have a little bit of confidence from last week. He race pace was quicker than Hadjar, despite finishing behind him with the penalties, but he just needs to clean up some of the aggression, look to have a solid weekend, because I still feel there's a bit of pressure on his shoulders.
Just touching on what you said about, these F2 drivers coming in, eventually we're going to get a whole field of F2 drivers, right? And if you've watched the F2 racing, it's hectic, man. They are crazy. They do not mind throwing it up the inside. Having these younger guys in is definitely spicing up the racing. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. Lawson just needs to keep it clean this weekend, keep his head down, keep it pretty quiet, and do his talking on the track.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. That's all the teams broken down for this week. Now, as far as predictions,
the magic ball.
Crystal ball time. Who have you got?
I'm going to go Oscar to continue his winning ways and put in a dominant performance. I'm going to say Lando's going to come in second and still cry. And I'm going to say Max third. I think that Red Bull's definitely going to perform a lot better this weekend.
So no Mr. Russell on the podium this week?
Yeah, tough one. For me, it's between Russell or Max, but I'm just going to tip Max. I think he's going to be pretty cranky about last weekend.
I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc.
Woo.
He's going to win.
I like that.
And I'm going to go Max was second, Oscar third. And I'm going to say, as far as the good midfield performer or driver down the back, the guy that outshines the rest is going to be Ollie Bearman. I think he's going to have a stonker again.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go past Ollie. I'm going to say Doohan. Doohan's got to be due. So hopefully for us Aussie fans, he can put in a really good performance.
Well, there you have it. A little bit of hometown bias. We're not much different than the Sky F1 team to their bias towards the British drivers. Well, we're quite biased towards our drivers from down under. Can't really blame us, of course. So there you have it. Another weekend lined up for what should be a great race. And then we enter a couple of weeks of downtime where you can all go outside, touch a bit of grass. But I'm sure within those 2 weeks, there will be plenty of news and silliness from the Formula One world.
No doubt. Until then, I guess we'll catch you in the next one.
On to the next one.